This entire area right here looks like a weedy, messy nightmare. And it is a weedy, messy nightmare. But believe it or not, this is the same area that my goji berries are in. And you can see them up here growing along this fence. This is one branch of the goji berry. They easily get, I've said it before, 14 feet tall, but they're very flimsy. You see how I've just kind of woven it into the fencing, and look at all of this fruit. There is a lot of fruit production on these berries, or on this vine. See that? Look at that. That's a lot of berries right there. And this is from one plant. And here's what they look like when they're fully ripe. They look like they're about ready to burst. And that's when they're ripe. A lot of times I see videos of people, they don't like gojis. And I don't blame them. They do have a very specific, strong taste. There's no sweetness or anything to them. So that's something that if you're not into it, you're not into it. I'm not even sure it's an acquired taste. I really like to use them for smoothies and mixing them in with other stuff. But you can see like the sheer numbers this plant produces. And so down here, it looks like there's nothing growing, but in reality, this is where the base of these bushes are, and they grow regardless. But every couple of weeks I have to come out here because there are weeds everywhere back here. This is the area that we've been letting grow up so the ducks can eventually move here in a couple of weeks, and I'll be building their new temporary fence area. And then the other side of their coop that they're coming out of, that's just kind of turned into a sloshy, muddy mess, I'm going to be turning that into a garden space over winter. And so I will be preparing that. But you can see the weeds pull away fairly easily. And it kind of reveals the goji berry bush. It's all right in here. And this little bitty bush, it looks like nothing because we come back here and we'll mow it down, or the ducks will come out here and they'll just eat all the leaves and strip it down. But this little bush is deceiving because it grew underneath the fence, and that's the entire plant that you're seeing on the other side. When you're seeing all of these vines, you can kind of see how it starts to get long. It's not really a vining plant. It's just a really flimsy little thing. Here's part of it, and where it was exposed to the ground under here, it's actually developing a root system. So it looks kind of crazy because there are things, but what happened is it was touching some soil and it started developing roots. And that's really cool because that's something that I didn't know previously gojis did. I just wanted food that could grow on its own, and even if it was something I didn't love, that would provide maybe the animals with some sustenance, and it does. The ducks really enjoy it. It's kind of a boredom buster for them to come and search for berries. And they don't eat the wood, so the woody parts of the berries often stay. They'll eat the leaves and the berries on what they can reach, but it doesn't do any damage to the plant. They don't eat the wood because they do have thorns on them. And as you can see, the thorns are quite long in areas, like they're pretty substantial thorns, but I'm over here all around them pulling out these weeds, and it's not doing any substantial damage to my hands. In fact, I'm not even sure I've been scratched once. So there it is, the little goji down here hiding. And then, of course, it's sending runners and branches up the other side, and they're climbing all the way up the other side, and they're also kind of taking over everything up here, which is really cool. So if you have gojis and you see they're getting taken over on the bottom, don't worry about it. Look how easy that was to clear out. I could really clear out most of this that easily by hand, and it's really no big deal, except for I'm out of shape, so of course I'm out of breath. But here, this is another goji, same exact type of goji. Got it at the same time. These were actually a lot larger, the plants were, but like I said, we come back here and sometimes there's just so many weeds, we don't even try to clean them out. Depending on which one of us is doing it, it'll just kind of get weed-eated or mowed over, and it grows back so easily. it doesn't really seem to care. Honestly, I think it kind of keeps everything in check. Because gojis can get out of hand really quickly. And we're in a fairly mild climate, what I consider a mild climate as far as winter is concerned. Not so much as far as summer. It gets kind of wild here when it's hot. Here is yet another goji plant. Also has weeds growing up around it, but this one is growing quite differently than the others are. It's more bushy and short, kind of a squattier looking plant. Once again, same type of plant. It just hasn't taken over like the other ones have. It hasn't really developed outside of a bush. It's not producing long branches anywhere. It may be sending out runners, but that's about it. And so these spread in so many ways. The seeds drop. If the plants touch the ground, certain branches, they can form roots. They kind of send off runners underneath the ground. So hope you know, if you're planting a goji berry, especially in a warm area, you're gonna have goji berries for life. And if that's not something that you like, that's not good. It's not gonna make you very happy, I guess you can say, because then you're stuck with this plant that you're not a fan of. This is another goji berry bush. I did not plant this bush, so that's why I said it looks like the other plant is sending off runners, because this just kind of popped up on its own. I'm pretty sure that it is an offspring of the plant next to it. Look at all of this just getting kind of piled up. And yet the gojis are perfectly happy. That's the one thing about them. They're really easy plant to grow. They're not affected by weeds or anything else. You just pull them off. These weeds can go right into the duck pen for the ducks. And when the ducks do come out to this side in a couple of weeks, it's going to be no big deal that they're going to come over here. They're going to eat all the berries and leaves off this plant and leave the woody parts, and then they're just going to regrow, and it really keeps them in order. I see a lot of leaves here, but no flowers on this one. This one I know has flowers, not on this side, but on the other side of the fence. It sent up a lot of shoots, and those actually have flowers. It took over where my cucumbers were growing earlier this season. It just went crazy on the other side of the fence. And then this one, you see the vining part kind of up there taking over everything, but this is down here. There are still a ton of flowers and quite a bit of fruit, and this is what was being what looked to be choked out by weeds, but really it wasn't. It was thriving underneath all of those, still producing really well. Check this out. Oh, right there on that leaf. It's kind of hard to see, but there's actually a black and orange spider hanging out, kind of keeping everything in check. Oh man, it is hot out here already, and it is early in the morning. It gets hot really fast, so I'm gonna bail and head inside and take a break before I have to come and weed out some of the garden where the beans are popping up. But I'm really excited about this goji. This is the second or third update I've made in a short period of time, but I'm really impressed with the amount of berries that I'm getting off these plants. And for me, throwing them into a smoothie really isn't that big of a deal. Also, once we start producing an abundant amount, I'll probably dehydrate them. I know there's some people that really don't think that it's worth it with them being so small, and it may not be. They have to be processed pretty much immediately because they go bad quickly. They don't last long within 24 hours of them being off the bush. They're shriveled up, mushy mess. So it is something that you're going to have to come out and immediately take care of. And there are some pest problems. You can kind of see that right there. We've had some leaf-footed bugs issues, so some of the berries kind of shrivel up because of it. But it's not that big of a deal. I plan when I spray the apples and stone fruit with the kale and clay to go ahead and come out here and spray this to kind of keep all the insects in check. Here's another one there. But even with the insect damage and us having an issue with them all the time, they've pretty much, birds and other animals have kind of kept them in check, especially lizards. Believe it or not, we have a lot of garden lizards around here that really help manage everything, and it hasn't been bad. We've still gotten a pretty good amount of berries even with pest issues. So I've done some videos on these. These are the leaf-footed bug nymphs. You just smush them off. Leaf-footed bug is another word for stink bug. So just so you know, they may produce a pretty foul smell, but it smells bad, but it doesn't hurt you. It's not ideal, but it doesn't hurt you. You could just wash your hands. Some people like wearing gloves because of it. And honestly, that's really the only pest that I've seen are my own ducks, which I'll allow, and the leaf-footed bugs, which honestly, it's kind of unavoidable here, unless they're sprayed down, like I said, but I don't mind sharing because I'm still getting a lot of fruit. I'm not really taking care of this plant. I'm walking out here, weeding it off, weeding it off, I say that, taking the weeds from around the plant and clearing it up, and then just picking the berries and enjoying it. Let the ducks have whatever falls, or sometimes I'll pick the berries and not feel like processing them and just throw them to the ducks. So here's an example of flowers that haven't quite opened yet. It's just kind of a fun plant to grow on the fencing. I didn't think I'd really enjoy it this much, but I think it's a great plant. It's not for everybody, so I definitely say do your research, especially in a warm area. You don't want to be stuck with a plant that you hate for life. So just something to consider.